Hello, beloveds. I hope I can get to all the topics that's been coming on my mind today. The lunar cycles in the constellation of Aquarius, and as you guys know, I'm an Aquarius sun. So that means a lot of thinking, but it's not heavy. At least for me right now, which I'm like, yes, growing, developing, becoming more serene. I love this for me, and I wish it for you. A way you can do and use the energy of the lunar cycle is figure out what that constellation and that energy does. Now, if we know that Leo energy, for example, it's a bit more flashy, a bit more showy, a bit more about self love and attention, then maybe if that's what we're trying to get for ourselves, then we wait for the lunar energy to play in that type of activity or behavior and see if we're going to get something out of it. If it helps us in some way, spiritually or emotionally, right? For example, because Leo does other things other than that, but I digress. The constellation of Aquarius is more thought provoking. We've heard the term humanitarian, the water bearer, which means that, yeah, we understand emotions. I know a lot of people think we don't understand emotions. We understand emotions better than most you folks out here. And we understand the serenity of emotion, but we also understand the danger of emotion too. So whenever we feel and catch that danger element of it, we step back and examine before taking action. And that's something that a lot of people, when sitting in emotion, do not do. Aquarius does, and it makes everybody else confused. Okay. And for me, it has kept me safe more often than not as it pertains to dealing with emotions overall. But does it mean that you can't operate out of emotion during the Aquarian lunar cycle? No, you can absolutely can. But what you can do with those emotions and how you can operate out of emotion during the Aquarian lunar cycle is the things that cause you emotional unrest during the rest of the cycles, like earth and water, especially water. You think about them in a solution focused way during the Aquarian lunar cycles. If you think about it in a solution focused way without taking action, by the time you get to the water energy of Pisces, you can give yourself some more love for having to do all that mental work and chill for a little bit and then take action during the Aries lunar cycle. I was just telling one of my client babies this today. This is how you can use those lunar cycles to your advantage. In an air energy, think solution focused. I'm going to think about solutions, not just that I have problems, because we can get in a loop on, okay, I have problems, okay? Try to find your way out of that loop and say, you know what, yes, this problem, I'm identifying it and saying that, yeah, this is a thing, okay? But the solution can be focused on how can we resolve this? Because air energy is the more consciously aware energy, okay, you can identify different types of solutions and see which one works best for you because we got 2.5 days to do it during each air lunar cycle. And every single time there's an air lunar cycle, there's water right after. Every single time there's a water lunar cycle, there's fire right after. Did you know that? And this is how you can help yourself break out of the cycles and circles of issues and energies and circumstances that cause you unrest. Is that you can wait when a problem arises and you kind of check to see what a lunar cycle is. You can even just Google if you ain't got one of them apps and say, you know what, Google, where's the moon right now? Where's the lunar cycle right now? And it'll tell you what the moon is. Whatever that issue or problem comes up. And you can wait for the next air cycle if it's not in one. And then sit with your thoughts and sit with yourself for a little bit. Have a little long time, plan a little long time for the next air lunar cycle. And if it's a big problem and you're like, I don't know, man, this is pretty difficult, then sit with yourself until the grown folk air lunar cycle. When I say the grown folks, I'm talking about Gemini is the baby of the air signs. Libra is the middle child, and Aquarius is the oldest. So it depends on how large of the problem that you're having difficulty understanding is. Wait for that cycle, or you can try to work on it during each air cycle, trying to find a solution focused solution, I guess, to that issue without incorporating too much emotion into it, just looking at what actions you can take or what behaviors you can take or not take to make that situation better for yourself and anybody who's involved with it, right? And this is the moments in which you're going to be more logical, more fair, more balanced in your solutions. And you're going to come up with a plethora, write them down, the ones that are the best. And then during the next cycle, which is going to be water, you allow your emotions to come back in on it and see emotionally how does it make me feel and how would it make them feel if there's someone else involved in whatever stressor or thing that you're dealing with. And then take the logical self that came to the solution focused energy and the emotional self that says, okay, emotionally speaking, this is what's best long term for me or anybody else in my circumstances. You put them together and you are cooking with oil, my baby. And then right afterwards, that lunar cycle is done with water, you go into the fire lunar energy and take action. Because now you've done so in a more methodical way that's both beneficial to you and to anyone else involved. This is a way to react if you want to just pop off, or to respond if you want to take the time to think about your actions, think about the outcome of your actions on yourself and anybody else involved. And I don't mean anyone. And then take action because now we've grown up. We are responding. And that's a beautiful thing once you learn it. And if you don't want to use the lunar cycle, let me tell you something. I am a staunch proponent of people not believing what they don't want to believe. But you can't deny the results of response as opposed to reaction. The only time in this life, and you're going to hear from me, and I don't feel like this is subjective. This is very objective if you want good outcomes long term. The only time you should react as opposed to respond is when your life is being threatened or the lives of someone vulnerable near you is being threatened. These are the only time a reaction is appropriate. Like, what if that bitch called me a name out of my name? I talked about my mama. Well, that's upsetting. And it could use a response if you want to respond to it. But you have to decide your company that you're keeping. It's not just for friendships, honey. Because whenever you react or respond to someone who's low vibrational, and I'm going to use that term here because hurt people. Not all the time, though. Listen to me. I'm about to digress. It's going to be good, God. Listen to me. Hurt people do not always hurt people. I said it, hurt people do not always hurt people. But all the people who do hurt people are hurt or have been hurt. There's not a single person alive who isn't in some way hurting and unhealed that does actually hurt other people intentionally without long-term results of positivity. And what I'd say about that is, it's not the same thing as your parents grounding you. Your parents don't have to be necessarily hurting to ground you, but some part of them is disappointed or upset with you because they grounded you or punished you in some way or took something away, right? So I'm not talking about teaching somebody a lesson because sometimes it needs to be taught. But from a space of love, though. If you're trying to cause permanent damage, you ain't trying to teach nobody no lesson from a space of love. You're just hurting somebody because you hurt. I don't care who disagrees with that particular sentiment. It is objective. Now, when a person has been hurt, but they're on a healing path, and they've decided that I don't want to put no more nasty energy out into the ether, and I also don't want to cause that person no more harm, because obviously somebody else or somebody's else have already caused them harm. And so that's why they're behaving like this towards me. Even though it sucks sometimes, am I strong enough to handle this in my ego and my ness? Because if I'm not being physically threatened or nobody vulnerable is being threatened, then reacting to this is going to cause them harm in some way. Or it's going to keep the cycle of ugliness and nastiness going. So you can make a decision based on wisdom and based on thinking about the love factor in all things to decide not to react or to respond and just keep doing you. Now, does that suck from time to time? I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a many of people, especially in the spiritual community, I've been wanting to beat the brakes off, or cuss the hell out, or go the hell off on multiple occasions. And it's my guides that come through every single time and tell me to forgive them. And they remind me that people don't act like that aren't wounded. What they need is love. You know you can whoop their ass if you wanted to, right? Yeah. But I need them to know that. Do you really need them to know that? Or does the shadow version of you and the part of you that's still wounded need them to know that? And then they hurt my feelings with the truth enough times that I got the picture. It is easy to react out of anger, react out of ego. That is easy. It is much harder to wait until the time is advantageous to respond and decide when something requires a response. Honey, I'm not a hypocrite by no stretch of the imagination when it comes to this thing. And this is one of those things that I ain't pride myself on not being a hypocrite about. Because let me tell you, there was a time, honey, it didn't take much. And now it would take a great deal for me to respond to react to anything that's, I guess, that rubs me the wrong way, I guess. And in doing so, I've created a bond with my higher self, a bond with a part of me that loves me, but also a bond with a part of me that always conceptualized every human being on the planet, an animal and plant, as a huge family in this ecosystem. Any harm caused to them is harm caused to me kind of thought process. Okay? And that's how I consider things, just in general. You might think, well, how did you get there? Again, I didn't get there by myself. I had friends, I had my spirit guides, I have my ancestors. Whether you can hear them or not, can you hear the part of you that says it's going to be okay? Can you hear the part of you that says, go heal? Here's what you can do to make life a little bit easier for yourself in the interim. You don't have to go do that. Or the part of you that has trepidation about hitting someone or fighting back in any way. If you have no doubt in your mind whatsoever that you need to react or respond, then maybe that's right. But I would welcome you to go ahead and sit with it for a little minute, especially if you're not being physically threatened or nothing or no one's being physically threatened around you. This is a way to, if you'd like, a path to enlightenment or wisdom. It's a path of patience, honey. I'll tell you a little ditty. I have time, so I'll tell you a little story, a few little stories. My spiritual path started when I was a child, and I've said this previously, but I wasn't completely out with it because I didn't want my children to feel pressured to believe in any kind of specific ideology. I just wanted them to get to know themselves. On top of how scary sometimes the spiritual world was for me growing up. And this is especially true not having an elder really guide me outside of my ancestors or um, guides in general. Every now and again, I run into an elder that wouldn't be put in my path just at the right moment where I was just not getting the messages right or confused, and be an elder that I, meet in this life, and they'd guide me for a little while, and then they'd go on their path and I'd go on mine. But that was like happenstance. It was nobody consistent until I got older. Okay, I had to learn everything, through hook or through crook. And once I started to get into the spiritual community, I understood certain assignments that I had for myself within the vastness of everything. And one of those things I took upon myself to be is protective of myself and others in the spiritual community, because a lot of them, even if they were the same age as me, were younger than me spiritually. Like, to this game, to this concept and idea of the oneness of all things and the acceleration of cellular growth, spiritual growth, and mental growth, and in other words, evolution. Even it's just this evolution of thought. I'm like, they need protection at all costs. Like you said, certain people say, like Keanu Reeves, protect this man at all costs. That's the way I felt about it. I still kind of feel that way, but I'm just not as energetically vibrant about it because of circumstances. But that's more about self-protection. I've had in the spiritual community, this is one of those things that I'm trying to elaborate on, even though I don't like talking about my personal stuff. At least not with any great detail or anything like that. I like to be vague as possible because my personal stuff is mine, but I'm going to go against the grain of the aqua right now and tell y'all something. I've had, in no particular order, people in spiritual community and otherwise. And when I say spiritual community, I mean spiritualists, astrologers, tarot readers, whatever, even people who are church folk and all kinds of things bash me. I have one specifically bash me when I was telling him, hey, I can see that you're sick and you're getting quite ill. Bash me live in front of thousands of people. And I'm just like, all I did was tell you. He didn't want to hear it. That was a lesson I learned. Can't help nobody that won't be helped, but not everybody in the spiritual community that has a large following is walking a spiritual path, or at least on the same path as me. I learned that lesson that day. And every single time I've had any kind of negative experience, I would say I learned something from it. I've had someone do it again in front of thousands of people. This was a female, and even made fun of health conditions and grief I was experiencing. I have done a damn thing. To this day, there are times when I'm in my shadow work period that I still have confusion about that, and it's still very upsetting to me. I guess in a vein of, yeah, I saw her as a sister. I was probably the most protective of her, and my feelings were hurt in a way that I cannot explain or describe to you. There's another one who I've been kind of like secretly, after those experiences, I've had a few of those. I was secretly like doing things to pat his channel and push him up and encourage him. I don't know what happened with that, but it's like all of a sudden he just started getting negative, and I'm just like, I don't know what the hell is going on with that. So again, I back away instead of react, because my guys tell me, I know that anger and that temper on you. Forgive them though. It's the Christ consciousness that kind of kicks in that moment, and that is they don't know what they're doing, or either they do know what they're doing, but they're not aware of your intention, and maybe they're confused about it. You don't have to engage them any further. They're not an actual threat to you. I literally have to have these conversations with myself and my guides, and when I don't have them with myself, my guides have them with me. And then back away and go do you. Do whatever you need to do, shadow work wise, to get through it. But they're still your brothers and sisters, whether they realize it or not. I've had a moment which, when I was first starting Metaluna and Steelhead, I had a friend of mine who had just had brain surgery. She's a young baby, and I've been knowing her since she was a teenager. And she had just had brain surgery, and she was so grateful to the help that I gave, and she decided she wanted to make me a logo for Metaluna. She decided she wanted to help me out in that way, and it was so special to me. Like, it wasn't like nothing super grand or anything like that, but I said, you know what, let me start the trademark process, because she did this while she still had staples in her head from brain surgery. One of your most popular tarot readers on YouTube came out with the same logo. She must have used the same program. And I was informed. So I informed her, like, hey, I've had this for like a year and a half, and I'm in the trademarking process. Because it's not just you pay for the trademark, it takes time. And then you have to wait, once they approve you, 6 months to a year, get a lawyer, and all kinds of things. I had already had a lot invested into this. And you know what she told me? Yeah, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to keep it. I was like, but it is clear that I've had this for 2 years. She decided, nah, I want it for myself. I didn't explain to her none of this. I just like, wow, that's some real cutthroat stuff. And I said my piece about it, but I ain't cuss her out or nothing. I ain't explain what the deal was, that she just stole from somebody who barely had much to give and gave that to me as a gift. I was trying to protect it. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to let it go. And I did. And it took a lot for me to do that, and not literally bring her butt to court. Because this is not about making money for me, even though I do make money. This is about helping a collective and creating a better vibration overall. And it's been difficult for me to do that up until now. When I have these breaks and moments and interactions with those in the spiritual community, you would think that I would hate everything about this and just give up. On top of the fact that my chosen career path initially was a therapist. And yes, that has helped me immensely in a lot of ways, in a lot of things that I do, and information that I give to the collective. It does not mean that it wasn't difficult to give a lot of that up and change a lot about who I am and what I do. In that vein, I've chosen this path and to continue it from a space of understanding the overall picture of all things is more important than me. That's a choice I make in my head every single time I choose to respond as opposed to react. Now I've reacted, honey. But the first instance or the second instance where I told you, like this one that I just really saw as my sister and I was doing the absolute most to support and help her. And then she just fucking blasted me out of nowhere. I have no idea why it was that she did it. Honey, my gut instinct was to crush. Instead, I showed her love and told more people about her because I know that there's a part of her that was at that time ugly. I don't know what's going on with her now. I know there were parts of her that was at that time ugly and very bullyish and thuggish. And there's nothing wrong with being that way if you absolutely must. But my subjective opinion, you didn't have to. But the sadness I felt about that then is not completely gone in all of those situations. And that's, I guess, a lesson here. Is that sometimes you're going to experience sadness even when doing what you feel is the right thing to do. And sometimes that is responding or receiving healing energy through shadow work and sending love. It does not make you weak to do this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Everybody out here reacting and matching energy. Everybody out here doing it is like, this is what makes me look big and bad because the world, the collective of human beings are so incredibly wounded. There's so much trauma and drama that they're cleansing out of their generations and generations of folk before them. That sometimes there's a lack in seeing. They're putting more negativity out there, regardless of what somebody's done to you. It's only going to perpetuate that energy further. And if the goal in spirituality and all of us awakening and becoming woke right now is to create a more balanced, if not paradise-like place for our children and grandchildren or other folks' children and grandchildren, if we choose not to create a person, if the overall goal is that, then why are we still doing stuff like that? I ask myself. But I can't be responsible, and neither can you for other people's actions. You can always be responsible for yours though. And that's why it's important for you to take the time, even if you don't use the lunar cycle, take the time to think about your solutions. And then allow yourself to heal if you have some ego bruising that goes on with those solutions. Because everything I just told y'all about, trust me, my ego was bruised. Mostly because I can fight, I can scrap physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I have no doubt in my skill set. To not act bruised my ego multiple times. To send love wounded my heart multiple times. Send love I still did. Because the truth of the matter is, I really, really, really just want this to get better. Over time in general. But if a physical threat comes to me, an emotional threat comes to me and is imminent, then reaction is perfectly fine. But ask yourselves, baby, now that we're in a lunar cycle of Aquarius, we're going to have a whole nother day tomorrow. And even if you see this video at a time where lunar cycle is not in Aquarius, I need you to still respond or listen or hear it in a way where you can understand that you can still take the time to think through things so that you can clear out stagnant energy that you keep repeating because you keep engaging the reaction. The reaction is very connected to the flesh. And we all trapped in our meat suits, but that's not our spirit. It's not a heart. The energy our heart gives off when we fall in love or we see a baby, that is not something that you can govern from a space of hate, anger, and harm. And if you don't want to govern yourself by that, sometimes whenever you hear me say, take the L, that's what I mean. If you're strong enough. But if you ain't strong enough, it'll show. And this is the caution part. There's a lot of spiritual people on all the apps. And a lot of times it is concerning to me the, the amount, not the amount itself. The numbers, I love it. I have loved it from day one. I felt less alone in the world. But I say the thing that is concerning to me, the amount of folks that is clearly still on the path of doing shadow work and deep in it and resistant to it because their message is not coming from a space of you can say, yeah, I can beat your ass. But if your message is consistently violent and vile and tell people to choose violence and choose aggression and all these things, you understand. Listen to me. Do you understand that every action you take, the true magician, and those who have no thing to it, but a thing to understands revolution is not this. It takes a little while till it come back to center, but it always does. So whatever you do to others, you doing to yourself. That's just something you learn once you get a little skin in the game. But you're not just doing to everybody else. Because every single time you hurt somebody's feelings or hurt somebody's body or hurt somebody's heart, that person has the potential to do that to other people who don't deserve it. Because wounded people hurt people, hurt people. And if your overall energy isn't to heal at least our own brothers and sisters and then progress that out, and your ego, your likes, your views, your clicks, your clout is more important, that part, it is a prayer that I pray often that is rethought. But in lieu of having that completely cleared out, because it's not at the current moment based on what I've seen thus far, I'm going to love. I'm going to teach from a space of love. And I'm going to let y'all know how difficult sometimes being on the path in the way that I am on the path is. But I'll tell you one thing, sweethearts. Does come with some incentives and some precious moments and a whole lot of strength. If you ever feel like you need support, you want to learn the path and way in the way that I walk it, especially if you'd like to also learn about astrology, hit me up in the description below. Till next time, y'all are loved.